I went to watch the new DreamWorks animation film The Wild Robot at the cinema a few nights ago. Here are my thoughts. Let's start with the pleasantries then. This is Toby Jones Talks Film, where we do exactly what it says on the tin. I am Toby Jones, and today I am talking about the new DreamWorks film The Wild Robot that I went to see at the cinema a few nights ago. Didn't imagine I'd be making this video, but isn't it rare that a film stays with you and maybe you think something of it that perhaps it wasn't intended to do? Obviously, this isn't going to be a spoiler-free review, so if you haven't seen the film, go and watch it first. But if you're not particularly bothered, then stay right here. But I'm not going to try and spoil too much. I'm just going to talk more so about what the film's based about and what it made me think of, and just a couple of comments around that, really. So, I've always loved animated films since I was a child. In terms of franchises, which we're going to be talking about a bit later, Toy Story has to be probably my favourite. Monsters Inc. and Monsters University, two great films. Monsters University, I actually prefer that to Monsters Inc. just about. That's a controversial opinion. Wreck-It Ralph as well is one of my favourite animated films. So going into this, I have to say I didn't expect too much. It was one of those films that I saw it advertised at the cinema. I have an Odeon Limitless Pass, which is a cinema in the UK. The Limitless Pass allows me to go and watch many films as I want a month by paying a certain subscription fee. It comes out at an annual basis of £12 or £13 a month, so it's an absolute bargain, and I try and go at least once a week, so that makes it really, really cheap viewing. And because of that, I tend to go and watch most things that come out. If it looks half decent, it's worth giving it a go, plus it's a night out, and The Wild Robot was certainly one of those. I'd heard very good things about it, but I was thinking going into it, it looks okay, but I'm not going into it thinking much. And isn't it great when you go into a film that you don't expect much out of, and you get a lot more out of it than the flip side? I've gone into a lot of films in the last 18 months since I've had this pass that I've really been looking forward to. The trailers are great, and I've ended up being disappointed, but this was one of the opposite idea. So this film was a bit middling, I guess, for the first half. I wouldn't say I was disinterested in it, but it didn't particularly pique my interest until I started thinking what my interpretation was of some of the themes of this film. So there were two main themes that I got from this. Firstly, the topic of AI. Now, we've got the Wild Robot, and to cut a long story short in some of the events of the film, the robot is basically, again, artificial intelligence who goes around completing tasks, menial jobs, and then it's completed its task. Fantastic. But in the runtime of this film, this specific Wild Robot almost gains a heart, gains purpose and conscience, and starts to have rational thoughts rather than just doing menial tasks, I suppose. And there's the topic of AI here, which I find interesting. And within the film, there's kind of an advertisement for these Roslins or something. I can't think what they're actually called, but I think it was Roslin or Rosalind or something like that. And basically they were a brand of robot that were being sold to the Joe public to help them complete menial tasks, and spend this much on this robot and the robot will do all of your menial jobs for you. Yeah, and there's also the argument here, of course, of the whole rogue idea. The robot, being the Wild Robot, does go rogue, albeit unintentionally. I'll let you watch the film to figure out how that happens through a few plot contrivances. But I found that really interesting, how it discussed the topic of AI. Secondly, and I think this is the more pertinent discussion that I found relevant in this film, and I had some link here to the purpose of life. Now, I've just discussed that the aim of the robot's character, or any of these robots, is to be assigned a task, complete the task, and that's it, head home. And there's nothing to live for, or they get assigned a new task. And I almost thought in my mind, it's not really just from this film robots, is it? You know, all of us, I feel like it resembles either the rotation of life, or I guess the monotonous nature of the 9 to 5, I suppose. That you finish a task, move on to the next task, and that's it. And I just found those topics interesting, the two topics that this film brought up, and it did make me think about a couple of things. So that's quite rare for a film, and again, might be something that the film isn't trying to convey, but I found it interesting nonetheless. And these films, the good ones at least, they know how to tug at your heartstrings, don't they? They really, really do. I was getting choked up towards the end over a blinking robot I know that we all got choked up at the end of Toy Story 3 over a toy cowboy and a toy Buzz Lightyear, a toy astronaut, I suppose, Buzz Lightyear. But a robot, really? But once the film started to click for me in terms of what it meant to me, I started to enjoy it a lot more. I gave this film a 4 out of 5. It could be higher. I've made the danger in the past because the film stayed with me and I've found some of the topics it maybe not explicitly brings up, but those two topics, I found those interesting. So in the past, I have given a film a higher rating because of the topics it presents. But I don't really think that's the way to do it, because if it's for instance, if it's an average film but presenting an interesting topic, it shouldn't be pushed up because of that. Maybe it should be given a slightly better rating, but not pushed all the way up to the top just because I found the contents of it interesting rather than the way it was portrayed or the way it was written, etc. But I'm going to give this film some criticism now, and not the film itself. And it's what's going to happen in the future. Would you believe it? There's a sequel planned. Isn't that a shock? I thought this was a one and done film. Another good film I've watched this year is If, or Imaginary Friends, which Ryan Reynolds starred in. And I don't really follow too many reviews, but the reviews I watched were quite middling reviews, and I thought it was decent if nothing else. I actually really enjoyed that, and that was another one that tugged at the heartstrings as well. I gave that a 4 out of 5, but that's probably a little bit below The Wild Robot. So The Wild Robot very close to being a 9 out of 10. But those two films felt like one and dones for me. And it does seem the done thing now to do a sequel. Now, the sequel could be fantastic. Apparently there's 3 books that were written. The first film being The Wild Robot, was based on that book. I just can't see how they're going to move on and make more films out of it. I can, because it's been done with so many other franchises. But I'm a bit sick of it. The beauty of that film is that it was an original film. And in fact, a lot of the films I've enjoyed this year are original concepts. When I think of my favourite cinema releases, The Iron Claw, Blink Twice, One Life, all unique circumstances. Other films I've gone and watched sequels: Despicable Me 4, Inside Out 2, Kung Fu Panda 4, even going back to last Christmas with Chicken Run, Dawn of the Nugget. None of them a patch on their predecessors. Inside Out 2 was probably the best of them all, I thought, but I didn't enjoy that as much as I enjoyed the first film. I just think we all get a bit sick of these same characters, and the joy of cinema is almost going into a world of different characters, and I think some of these films, the likes of Despicable Me and Kung Fu Panda, they've run out of things to say. Kung Fu Panda, ironically, I enjoyed the second film more than the first. But after the second film, there's nothing more to say, and the third and fourth films are quite poor. Even though I gave the third film a 6 out of 10. I feel like I was on the Kung Fu Panda charge then, but the fourth film, no, it wasn't very good. Despicable Me, another fantastic concept. But that's been really milked now, hasn't it? We've had 4 Despicable Me films, 2 Minions films, and more planned. Again, the first 2 Despicable Me films, really good. The second film of Despicable Me created the character that had become an anti-villain, so there was a different concept there, but Despicable Me 3 and 4 have just plodded along and presented new villains. They're not Bond films. These should almost just be one and done films. The difference that the likes of Monsters University brought rather than Monsters Inc. is that it put the characters in a completely different setting. It was almost like an origin story. Toy Story 2, Toy Story 3 brings in new, interesting characters, and Toy Story 3 has that follow-on from Toy Story 1 and 2, following Andy's story. Wreck-It Ralph, though, Ralph Breaks the Internet, is just a cash-in. And I don't know whether the sequels for The Wild Robot will be a cash-in or not. I don't know a lot about it, but that is a little bit frustrating. I'll probably go and watch them, as I plan to go and watch the new Venom film over the next couple of weeks, as I plan to go and watch the new Gladiator film over the next couple of weeks, as I plan to go and watch the new Paddington film in the next few weeks. But as box office releases, they'll probably do well as well. That's the other problem that this presents. But this is a review of The Wild Robot, so I'm not going to go on for too long and talk about my angst with all these sequels and the lack of original ideas and having bankable actors anymore and just having characters and franchises thrown at you for the generation who don't have a very high attention span. Anyway, The Wild Robot was a very good film. I rated it an 8 out of 10. In terms of DreamWorks, I don't think I've watched many DreamWorks films over the last X amount of years. I enjoyed Shrek back in the day, but I honestly can't think of a lot of DreamWorks films that I have watched. I know a lot of people enjoyed the How to Train Your Dragon series. I think that was DreamWorks at least, but I've never really gone into How to Train Your Dragon. Is it something I should do? Let me know down below. But The Wild Robot, most importantly, if you've clicked on this video to know what The Wild Robot is like, I really enjoyed it. It was an 8 out of 10, and I think it's a must watch.